Yeah. Okay, couple things I want to talk to. Welcome back, everybody. We all had a nice break and a chance to cool down. A couple things I want to talk about today. Sort of bigger picture, I want to give you an update on the status of our implementation plan for a NASA integrated lunar science strategy in the Artemis Era. Now, it's a bit of a mouthful, but you know. And also, I want to talk a little bit about how to get involved in Artemis. A lot of students here, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that there's lots and lots of different ways to get involved and go through some of them. So those of you who have not heard yet about our integrated implementation plan for a NASA integrated lunar science strategy in the Artemis Era. This comes out of the OWL, the decadal recommended that PSD should develop a strategic lunar program that includes human exploration as an additional option to robotic missions. And so that was our marching orders. So we have gone off and written this document. The word integrated here in this title then refers to actually integrating Artemis and CLIPS alongside all of our sort of more traditional methods, discovering new frontiers, RNA, to achieve our science goals. And this implementation plan provides a sort of a snapshot of NASA's plans to implement the strategy recommended in the OWL and to address our Moon to Mars objectives. Sort of an opportunity to present the full scope of tools currently available to NASA and how we can map them to our high priority lunar science. But this is a snapshot. It's meant to be a living document that's going to continue to evolve. We expect to update it on a sort of biannual cadence. And the way that this document is scoped is that it's not an outline of every science objective we have for the moon. There are places you can go to find those in the OWL and other documents, the SCEM report and so on and so forth. But the idea of this document is really to focus on those sort of big challenges that we need a strategy in order to accomplish, that we just can't do a one-off mission or a CLIPS project or whatever and accomplish. And so the way that we've scoped it is we have these 5 objectives. 3 are specific missions: South Polacan sample basin sample return, lunar geophysical network, and cryogenic volatile sample return that we know we need to strategize and have a plan in order to accomplish. And then 2 other objectives that sort of require a buildup of knowledge and global access to samples to achieve: lunar chronology, lunar formation, and evolution. This was the original plan. We put this out in November, released it for public comment. We got a lot of great comments. Many of you in this room, I know, provided comments. Some of you provided lots of very extensive comments, and we super appreciate them. We received a number of individual responses as well as a very thorough response from League. And we really appreciate the feedback. We read all of it. We are not providing a bullet-by-bullet response to anything, but rest assured, we considered all of the feedback we got. We do expect the final version to be coming out this summer. And I just want to talk a little bit about the sort of major changes that we expect in that final document. We got a lot of comments, that science enables exploration, exploration enables science. We understand both of those things are true. This document really only talks about the science that we're getting out of exploration and not the science that we are inputting into exploration. Not because that's not important, but just because we need to constrain this document. It's already longer than we intended it to be. And we really it has a purpose, and its purpose is to help guide the science that we want to do. So it is not to say that the science that we are inputting into the exploration in terms of like helping to find landing sites and lighting and all of those other things that we are doing to help encourage the architecture aren't important, but they are not part of this document. Then the other major change we made was we added volatiles as a sixth big challenge. We got a lot of feedback that although we included cryogenic sample return as one of our missions, that is not our only volatiles goal. That is very true. It was an oversight on our part. And it may seem odd given the hour-long discussion we just had that, we don't think volatiles is a priority, but we certainly do think that volatiles is a priority. And in fact, now more than ever, having a strategy to help us define how we are going to achieve our volatiles objective is more important than even it was last week. So we've added volatiles and are trying to think through what that strategy should look like. We got a lot of comments about LEXO. LEXO, for those in the room who are not familiar, is a mission concept study that we funded Goddard to look at what a follow-on to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter might look like. And so this was their study. And they use a strawman payload, which was only ever intended to be a strawman payload. We got very specific comments about that payload, which we have now taken out of the document. And we are looking at the objectives. To be clear, we don't currently have LEXO in our forward budget, but if we were to move forward with an orbiter, we would certainly be competing either the full mission or at least the instruments for that. And so that strawman payload was always only intended as a strawman, and we'd very much want community feedback on what a payload of such mission would look like. So we wanted to provide some clarification on our Artemis SDTs and the strategic input for that. So we have a science definition team report for Artemis 3. We feel that is valid. We're not doing another one for Artemis 4. We feel that is a valid document for any short-term polar mission. And so we don't intend to spin up another science definition team for Artemis 4. But there are places where we are going to need additional input. And for those, we are looking to the National Academy. So we have two plans to spin up two different National Academy study. One is non-polar locations. We are very much focused right now on getting to the pole. That's part of the Artemis focus, but we do know that we can't achieve all of our objectives at the South Pole. And so together with the ESDMD, we have now tasked the national academies, and we have agreed on the wording of that task. We are still working through the contract, but to spin up a national academy study to look at why we would want to go to non-polar locations, what the science is we would want to do with humans there, where those locations should be. And then serially, after that one is done, because we've asked the national academies for a lot lately, and I know the community is a little taxed, the National Academy is a little taxed. We can't do everything we want all at once. So when that task is done, we expect that to be about an 18-month task. We are spinning up a second one, looking at sort of the long-term phase of exploration at the South Pole and what it is, the kind of science that we would want to do when we have more time and aren't just doing short-term sorties. All right, we also have added a new ROSES element. Hopefully some of you saw that. All those proposals are in now, so if you didn't, you'll have to wait. For a lunar mapping program, just a pilot project to try to figure out how to do mapping for human exploration in a human exploration era. What does that look like? How do we need to do geologic mapping? And so we have spun that up. Oh, and we added that long duration National Academy study to the next steps list. Next slide. So the next steps list, oh, that's me. The next steps list to me is probably the most important part of this document. So at the end of this strategy document, there is a list of all the things that we are committed to accomplishing over the next couple of years before the next iteration of the strategy comes out that will help us make progress on that strategy and decide what directions to go. Here I've got labeled now in green all of the things that we are actually already doing. The strategy, the draft came out in November. It's still a draft, but that has not stopped us from moving forward. So we are working hard on a number of these things. The ones in yellow are things that we have started and are working our way towards. The ones in white we haven't gotten to yet, but we still got 2 years, so we'll get there. So you can see that we've got, starting at the top, a study on Endurance A. We funded JPL to do a quick study to get a little deeper than what we had gotten in the decadal process. That's been complete. I already talked a little bit about LEXO in the study we asked Goddard to do there. That is also complete. We've requested a joint League XMEG study on Artemis samples. That is a third complete. We're at the other two. We got the volatiles section in. Thank you very much to those who worked on that. We've got 2 other panels that are working now, one on non-volatile samples and then sample data. We've given them different deadlines, so they're getting ready later this year to get those wrapped up. We are continuing community engagement on the Moon to Mars definition document. You will hear more from Jake and Deborah about that process and how you can get involved. And we're continuing our Lunar Surface Science Workshop series, which gives us really direct feedback on topics that are important to us. It is really crucial. I don't know how many in the room have joined into a LSSW. Okay, that's a good chunk. I do want to encourage, especially the young folks in the room, these are entirely virtual, they are entirely free, and it is probably the most effective route we have to get feedback from the community about topics that we desperately need feedback to feed into Artemis architecture. Let's see. Oh yeah, so we've got spinning up now. There's a South Lake and Basin Sample Return Science Definition team. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We will be looking for members for that soon. We've got, as I said, this National Academy study on non-polar destinations. That should also be looking for members soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. And we are working with the USGS to better define a coordinated geologic mapping strategy for exploration. The lunar mapping ROSES element is the first step in that process, but I don't think that is the whole answer. So we're continuing to work with our USGS partners on that. Things we haven't gotten to yet. We do want to conduct an LGN payload study to look at the requirements and feasibility of using CLIPS as an approach to accomplishing LGN. And as I said before, we also plan to spin up a National Academy study on a sort of long duration sustained phase of human exploration, which is the one we've added now to this list. The one we took off there is our Mars study, which we did do. We didn't cross it off because we didn't want to do it. It actually has spun up and they are starting to meet, but it's really only tangentially related to our lunar strategy. So we decided we probably didn't need to include it in this list. And then, as I said, right, this is meant to be an evolving, growing document. There are things that in this document that we have not yet fleshed out, but we have time to do that, and so we intend to sort of iterate on this document every couple of years. And in particular, we know that over the next couple of years, we're going to have some opportunities. We're going to have a couple more CLIPS landings. And we're also starting to think about CLIPS 2.0. Those of you who've been around since the beginning of CLIPS may or may not know that CLIPS is a 10-year IDIQ contract. And so that base contract, we are starting to think about what the second generation of that's going to look like, both in terms of how that's going to be legally structured, but also in terms of what it is that we want to accomplish in this sort of second generation of CLIPS. And so that's a great opportunity. And as we get more CLIPS landings under our feet and understand and grow with these companies, I think I'm really excited about CLIPS 2.0 and what we're going to be able to accomplish there. Artemis strategy continues to grow and develop. Again, you'll hear more from Deborah and Jake about how that is growing and developing, but I think that will be perpetually on this list forever because it is an evolving strategy that continues to grow. We do need to put some more effort over the next couple of years into our technology development strategy, both within our PESTO office at headquarters to understand how we are optimizing our investments in science instruments, but also sort of looking across Artemis about our long-term power, comm needs, et cetera, for doing science. And I know we also want to work on our international partner strategy over the next couple of years. I think mostly up to this point we've been reactive as our partners have come to us with things, but I think we could really use a better sort of strategy rather than just being reactive all the time. So things we know we still need to work on. Okay, so moving on. How can you get involved in Artemis? I know we got, as I said, a lot of early career folks in the room, and even those of you who've been around. I know everybody wants to get involved in Artemis. So we do have a lot of upcoming calls. I will be talking about some. Deborah will be talking about some. We've got calls coming out of our ears at the moment. So I also encourage you to get involved in AGS, right? There, of course, League, as well as XMEG and MAPSIT and the other AGS, whatever your particular interests are. We've been doing a lot of work with the AGS through special action teams and white papers. They are a great place, a source of information for us to understand what is going on in the community and what the community's priorities and needs are. And that is also one of the ways that we are coordinating input into the architecture definition document. You'll hear more from Jake and Deborah about that as well. Also encourage you once again to attend and support our Lunar Surface Science workshops, 100% virtual, no fees. You just have to show up, bring your ideas, bring your advice. We do, particularly for the grad students in the room, we do usually need sort of early career folks to support us in note-taking and helping run those meetings. And helping write up those reports and things. And so if you have interest in that, you can, feel free to just email me, just tell me you're interested. Also, we will reach out as there are specific topics. If there are particular topics of interest to you, we like to give that opportunity to folks. And keep your eyes peeled. As I said, we've got a number of studies coming up, including the South Pole Lake and Basin Science Definition Team and the Nonpolar National Academy study. Whoop. No. I think it's a little glitchy. Okay. So upcoming calls. As I said, LMAP, those proposals are in. It was a pilot program in NESF 2024. So we are expecting to call it again next year, but that will sort of depend on how things go this year. Pretty excited about that program. We also have a program called Analog Activities, where we have hire folks to help us with sort of integrated analog studies like desert rats and jet testing. If you are familiar with those, we actually recently had a test, our Jet 5, which I think Lauren you will hear from later this week with the results of that. But it was a very sort of full up, complete Artemis 3 simulation test where we had astronauts out in the desert in Arizona in suits, and then we had a full up mission control in Houston, including a full up science back room. And so the folks from the Artemis Analog Activities Program are the ones who staff that science back room and help us work out how those operations are going to go, how you do the prep beforehand, how you do the actual tests. And so you can see a picture of the folks in the back room hovering over their map in the science scrum there, trying to figure out how to get the best science out of Arizona. We also are expecting to do an Artemis 3 participating scientist program that it will probably be sometime in NESF 25. We don't have a schedule worked out yet, but we are starting to think about what that's going to look like. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I also, for this community, wanted to point out that we added new language to LARS this year, encouraging folks especially to think about cold curated samples and the kinds of methods and instrumentation that we need in order to look at those samples in your lab. We are working towards bringing cold samples home, and we want to make sure that the community is prepared to deal with them when they get here. And then, of course, the call that many of you in this room care about, come on, maybe I'm pointing the wrong way, is that we are working on the Survey 5 can. I know there are a number of teams in this room that are rolling off. We are working on that draft now. We do expect to put out a draft. We expect to put that draft out late this year. For the first time, just a heads up, we are planning to do this dual anonymous. And in fact, in NESF 25, dual anonymous is going to be the default. So if you've not had to write dual anonymous proposals yet, it's a good time to get used to that because it's here to stay. So we are working out a plan for how we're going to do that with survey proposals. For those of you who are not proposing, we are considering an in-person review panel. So if you miss getting together with your colleagues and spending a week in a hotel room with endless cookies, have I got a deal for you? And just we are targeting a selection. We're still working out the budget details on that, but 5 to 6 new teams to keep survey going for another 5 years. And then just an advertisement for some of our upcoming lunar surface science workshops. I will note that the most recent one we had on the Artemis Base Camp, that draft report is now up and posted on the survey website for public comment. If you've got thoughts about that, please submit those. The second half of that, so that Artemis Base Camp workshop was focused mainly on lunar science, but there is a lot of other science that we want to be able to do at the surface of the moon. And so there's a sort of second half to that one, science drivers and capabilities for lunar surface habitat research facilities, that is taking a broader look at some of our other communities and the things that they would like to do in long term on the lunar surface: physical science, fundamental physics, space biology, astrobiology, astrophysics, heliophysics, all of those other things. And then we've got in September one on plume surface interactions. That abstract call is open now. It's open till August 2nd. So if you have interest, and I know there are people in this room that do have definite interest in that, please do submit abstracts to that. Looking forward to that. I think we have a lot of questions about PSI, and we're really hoping to get some good input from that meeting in September. I still say that if you have ideas for things that you would like to do as LSSWs, please come up and talk to us about that too. Although a lot of these are driven by things that we need answers to, some of them have been driven by things that the community would also like to talk about, and we are certainly open to using them for those purposes as well. And I think, is that my last? That might be my last.